Hi, this is Katie Buck, and this is my recording for field experience number 1. I'm here with Denise Quinn, and she is an ESL teacher in the Centennial School District at McDonald Elementary School. Okay, Mrs. Quinn, can you tell me about your teaching experience, please?
Well, I've had a mixed type of teaching. I started out in secondary level. I earned a degree in secondary education social studies, which I taught for 2 years in the North Penn School District. And then I stayed home and raised children for many years. And when I did go back to work, I went back as a Title I tutor in the elementary school that my kids attended, and eventually decided to get my elementary certification. So I went to college for that and got that degree. And I also taught during that same time. I was teaching adult ed in the evenings, one night a week. I was teaching social studies for the GED program. So I've taught different levels. I've taught K to 5 as well as 10 through 12 and adults. I currently teach ESL at McDonald Elementary. I've been there for 23 years. Taught all grades, although the last couple of years my focus has been grades 2 and 3.
Okay, can you tell me about your current classroom setup since you are teaching virtually?
Yeah, I do go into my classroom each day. Our school district provided us the option. And for me, I prefer to be there. I kind of get my head in the game better if I'm actually there. Plus, all my materials and things are there. And I think when the kids see that I'm at school, that makes us kind of hit home for them. Oh, we're doing schoolwork. It's not like I'm sitting in my office at home and they're saying, oh, you're in your house. So I feel that's important for my kids, my students. Virtually, we're live. I'm live the bulk of the day because I am an ESL teacher, although a lot of other regular teachers are doing more asynchronous. I feel that I need to be live to interact with the kids and help build their language skills. And we get on the computer each day. They start morning meeting at 8:45. They come to me at 9:05. I have third grade in the morning, 2 hours for language arts. And then I have my second graders for 2 hours in the afternoon, although we are on Monday actually they're redoing our schedules, so we're going to a different version. This will be a shorter version of live teaching. I'll be down to an hour and a half per grade with more asynchronous time built in and an earlier end time for the kids because they just felt that it was too long of a day for many of our kids to be in front of a computer, especially after they haven't been in school for 6 months.
Okay, what about some of the technology or resources that you have available to be able to teach virtually?
Our students, second through fifth grade, were provided with Chromebooks, and the teachers have either been given a Chromebook or a laptop. And K and 1 are using an iPad for their educational programming this year. And I'm working with 2 screens in my classroom, which I really like because I can see my kids the entire time, no matter what I'm doing or sharing, I can still see them on the second screen. So that's been really helpful because they are second and third graders, and I feel like they need to know they're being held accountable.
Okay, tell me about your current students, their languages spoken, the number of students, and proficiency levels in your groups.
This is the first year I've had such small groups in all these years of teaching. I have second graders. There are 9 students in the class. 2 of them have almost no English. One boy is Vietnamese and the other boy is from Mexico. The other 7 children were with us for kindergarten and first grade. And one girl is Turkish and the rest of the students are Spanish speaking. My third grade, I have 11 students, and of that class, I have several Russian students, and the rest of the students are Spanish speaking. And I don't have any in that group that would be considered a very limited speaker, although, I do have one Chinese boy, I apologize, in my third grade group, and he's actually the highest language skilled child in the classroom. So they are mixed groups, which makes it very challenging, especially in this virtual setting.
Okay, so the main focus for this field experience is to talk about multilingualism. So have you ever had a parent ask you if they should only speak English at home and give up their home language? And if so, how did you respond?
Actually, yes, I have. Over the years, I have had parents, they were under the impression that their child should only be speaking English now that they were in school. Although in many of the cultures that I deal with, the kids are completely indoctrinated in their first language through the age of 5 until they come to school. But have had some families that felt that they should stop speaking their first language, and I've explained to them, that you need to foster both languages at this point. And if you're reading at home to them in their first language, that is great because you're building their vocabulary and you're still teaching them pre-reading skills, which once parents understood that, and frankly, in the last few years, I haven't heard that, but this was earlier on when a lot of our families were new to the country. Now I see families where I'm teaching the second generation, or I'm teaching a child of another student I taught earlier in my career. And I have sat in conferences, though, where regular ed teachers have told parents that they should be only speaking English in the home and should be reading to them in English. And I was astonished. And I, had to have a corrective interview with those educators after the conference. And I said, that is not something we say to parents. I know that you're saying that you mean well, and in your mind that makes sense, but that is not what we recommend. And I've also found that when you have children that have learned a lot of English, they become the leader of the family and they displace the parents. And it wreaks havoc when you have a 15-year-old who's making doctor's appointments and taking parents places and involved in the finances in the home and those kinds of things. You now have relinquished the power of the parents and given it to the child. And it can really be very destructive in the family setting.
You sort of touched on this a little bit with your one comment, but what are your personal beliefs about English language learners being multilingual? And do you think multilingualism can be confusing for students who are trying to acquire English?
I always tell them what a great asset it is and how fortunate they are. And I think it's going to open so many doors for so many kids as they grow older in this country where Spanish is becoming more and more prevalent. It's a great skill to have. And I've seen it with some of my students that are now in college or out of college and are working jobs, and they speak a second language and they got a job because they were bilingual in that first language. Yeah, I definitely promote it. I think it's wonderful. And I also joke with them that I wish that I could speak more than one language. And some of my students that come to me speak multiple languages already because they speak dialects of their first language. So to them, acquiring another language just seems natural, which is not the case in the United States. That's not how we approach it for the most part.
Do you refer to the home language or culture of your immigrant students at all when you're teaching
Yes,
classes?
I do. And I try to buy bring books into the classroom that reflect the kids that are in my room. I try to promote that, really. I want them to see themselves in the books. We read a great one the other day called All Are Welcome. It's a new book that the first year I've used it, and the kids loved it. And when they looked at those pictures, I know they could see themselves in those pictures.
Do you have students who code switch at all? And if so, what are your thoughts on students who code switch throughout a school day? Does it interfere with their learning or their ability to have relationships with some of the other students that don't speak that native language?
I've seen some of it over the years, and I think it has to do with some children. When they come to you, they're very quiet and they don't want to take a risk, and you don't hear it so much in them because often they don't even want to talk at all. And when they do finally start to speak, they don't make that mistake because they're very concerned about making errors. Where I've had other kids that have come to me, and on the very first day, they're trying to speak some English, and a lot of it is "Cómo se dice," and they want to know the word, and then they start mixing the English words in with the Spanish words. But those kids are really making an effort to acquire the language and usually do pretty quickly. To go back to your last question, I did not answer, I think, the children that I've seen have issues with speaking multiple languages are often kids that have learning disabilities in the end. They have a very hard time and will begin to forget their first language in the process of acquiring a second. And then you have a real dilemma because those kids are kind of stuck at the age of 5 years old with their first language ability, and it never really grows beyond that. And they end up not being able to communicate with extended family in particular. And I think that's a real shame.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's all I have for right now. Is there anything else you think is interesting or important about your teaching that you wanted to share?
Well, this job came to me. It was kind of unexpected. It was an opportunity to get into my school district to take this position. It was a new position. Honestly, I didn't even know what ESL teachers did. So there's been a huge learning curve, and I think I got into this ESL at a really good time because there's been so much growth and so much learning, and it's such an open field now, where when I first started 20 some years ago, there weren't a lot of ESL teachers around, at least not in the suburbs where I live. So, I've been very fortunate that it just really worked out for me, and it was a kind of a case of serendipity.
All right. Thank you very much for your interview.
You're welcome.